So, did a video on teaching English in Japanese elementary school. So what about junior high? Well, first of all, one thing you should know is that in Japan, junior high is 3 grades, 7, 8, and 9. High school is 3 grades, 10, 11, and 12. So when you go to junior high, you will be dealing with children between the age of 12 and 15-ish, give or take. The next thing you should know, elementary school is junior high is the last required school in Japan. High school is not required. High school also works considerably differently than it does in the United States. I'll address that later. Junior high, however, is for one thing. It is for preparing a child either for the workforce or for entry exams into high school. That is it, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you do it for. This means that when elementary school students get to junior high, shit gets real. There's no other way to address this. Everything goes from being relatively laid back to pretty high stress. As a 6th grader in Japan, you are kind of in a transitional period where you do have more pressure and you do have more responsibility. Junior high school 6th graders in elementary school are given jobs like watching children as they walk to school. Everybody walks to school or takes the bus or the train to school in Japan. Everyone. Kindergartners, preschoolers do this. How is that possible, you ask? Americans would freak out, and absolutely they would. How you do it is, in every little cul-de-sac by U.S. standards. Oh, poor squirrel. Children will group up at the beginning of the day, and a 6th grader, or sometimes if one is not available, a 5th grader, or even a junior high school student, will meet them. And they will be their chaperone. They will make sure they get on the bus. They make sure they get to school. It is dumbfounding and inspiring to watch. And they do this because it is expected of them. Most of them take great pride in it. They are serious. I have seen a 6th grader throw themselves at a crosswalk, in front of a car with their hands out, close enough that the 6th grader's hands touched the hood. These kids take it very seriously, and it is a great introduction to junior high, because junior high gets very serious very fast. So what do you need to know about teaching English in junior high? The first thing you need to know is that schools vet their junior high school students. What do you mean by that? What I mean is that in every district there will be 1 or 2 delinquent schools. These are schools where they send all of the trouble kids. For whatever reason, those kids are trouble kids. I did not get the trouble school. My coworker Edward did. And when we say trouble schools, we mean children throwing equipment out of 4th-story windows, people hanging out of 2nd-story windows, fights, violence of almost any describable, description. Bullying. Bullying does exist in Japan. It is an entirely Japanese form of bullying, but it absolutely exists. Disruptive school members. Teachers hitting students. It happens. It is not supposed to happen at this point, but culturally speaking, it is still very acceptable. It happens. I'm not talking about teachers just like beating the shit out of their students. I'm talking about they will slap a kid in the back of the head. They will pick a kid up and throw them out of class. Things like that. I didn't get those schools. I subbed at one. It was fantastic. But I didn't get any. I got 2 pretty reasonable junior high schools. My favorite teacher, actually, a teacher referred to as Hideki Sensei, he worked there. He was great. He spoke fantastic English. He actually went to school in Hawaii. I ended up getting invited to eat at his house several times. Had a wonderful family. Interestingly enough, he was 6'1", and I am 5'3". So actually, the first time I walked into his class, I looked at him, and he looked at me, and I said, "Something seems off here." He got the joke. The kids didn't. Teaching English in elementary school is much more academic. You are teaching them English. You are primarily teaching them English vocabulary. Sentence structure, yes, you have to teach them sentence structure, but it's primarily vocabulary. And the average Japanese student, by the time they get out of high school, if they go to high school, has a vocabulary of well over 5,000 5,000 English words. Does that mean they can speak English? No. Sentence structure eludes them. Because sentence structure in English is so drastically different from sentence structure in Japanese, which I may address at some point. Really, for the most part, your job is going to be one of 2 things. You are going to be a tape recorder, or you are actually going to teach. Hideki Sensei let me teach for the most part. Or co-teach. It was 50-50, give or take. Because he knew what his students were going to do. You grade a lot of papers, in my case. You read a lot of sentences. You engage in a lot of exercises. It is much less dancing bear, but there is still an element of that in there. I probably enjoyed junior high more than than elementary school. Elementary school was still fantastic. I enjoyed junior high because I like kids at that age more. They get to the point where you can have an intellectual conversation with them if you so desire. Tips for being a good junior high school teacher. At the end of school, you can leave. Don't. Junior high school students stay for group activities. Find a group. Attend their meetings. It's fun. I did kendo. It was wonderful. I did kendo before. And they were pretty impressed that I knew anything about it. You will be asked to attend sports days or culture days. Attend them. Stay as long as you can. I actually got sick during our sports days because it was really hot, and ended up in the nurse's office. If you have a lot of leeway, a few suggestions here would be do things that your teacher would not. Your students are going to see your English teacher every day you're not there. Me and Hideki Sensei, we did music videos, actually. We just let them watch an English music video. Sometimes we would hand out the translated lyrics to the song. It was interesting. They're very interested in American music. I heard way more Taylor Swift than I really wanted to. I have since grown to like Taylor Swift. I blame Japan. It also helps a lot in karaoke to know what they, know how to sing Who's This Jerk? I don't know. How you doing? Awkward. Not really awkward, but it's so quiet out here. It'd be weird to talk while he was going by. He'd be like, hey, who's that guy talking? He's a weirdo. Right, other tips to teaching in junior high. Oh, that's the snowplow. Interesting. Right, anyways, awkward pause. Other tips to teaching English in junior high, there really aren't any. I'm not going to say it takes a lot less work in elementary school. It does not. It is considerably more laid back. I will warn you about this, though. There are time periods where you will be doing nothing. They are going to cram for tests at certain points in the year, and you will be doing nothing during that time period. You may be asked to help with stuff. I helped make posters, for instance. But a lot of times you won't do anything. You're not going to be sent home, though. So be prepared to spend a lot of time in your teacher's office. In both of my junior highs, I was basically allowed to wander the halls. Don't do that. You can do that, but don't do that. Also, you would be surprised what certain people do while teaching school in Japan. They'll walk the halls eating. Don't do that. Japanese kids can't eat any time but the time that they can eat. Also, you're gonna have to pay for your lunches in junior high. I would heavily suggest doing it. It's like 200 yen for a pretty good lunch. Bring your own chopsticks, please. They have them, but yes. I'm gonna combine this one with high school, because of course I only taught high school kids one day out of the week. And here's what I'll tell you. High school is crazy high stress for Japanese students. The first thing you should know is that the Japanese high school system works considerably differently. All Japanese high schools are either preparatory high schools that are meant to help you get into college, or they are trade high schools. Schools that specifically train you for a job that you don't need elementary school or don't need college for, university for, but that you will need other education for. We had an agricultural high school in Miyoshi. My high school was a private girls' school that was basically for university. It's not much different than junior high. The only difference here is you're going to be asked to sit in on a lot more classes. I sat in on a lot of history classes. There are a lot of great experiences to be had in these classes. A lot of times you have to make them yourself. In our high school class, in my high school class, in history, I had the history teacher come in one day and said, you know, William Sensei, I know you usually sit in on history. We're going to be watching a movie today. And I said, oh great, I love movies. And she said, well, it's a movie about World War II. So I know that might be a little awkward for you. And I said, no, I'll be fine. And she was like, you should know the movie is very sad. It's called Grave of the Fireflies. I have seen Grave of the Fireflies. On top of being awkward, because I'm American, Grave of the Fireflies is insanely sad. And this is a girls' school. I am not saying girls cry more than guys. I'm just saying there was a lot of crying going on. I cried during Grave of the Fireflies. It is a sad friggin' movie, ladies and gentlemen. There's no way around it. It was an interesting experience, just watching that movie with them. They were pretty stunned that I cried. There's a very famous lesson in Sunshine, which is the junior high textbook for English, about a pair of elephants at the Ueno Zoo in Tokyo during World War II. I'll tell you the story really quick. The gist of the story goes like this: near the end of World War II, a lot of the animals at Ueno Zoo were either starving or had escaped on occasion because of bombing by the Americans. So the Japanese provincial government decided that they had to kill the three elephants, I believe it actually is, at the Ueno Zoo. At first, they tried to poison the elephants with poisoned potatoes. The elephants were too smart for that. They could smell something was wrong with the potatoes and they refused to eat them. So they simply stopped feeding the elephants. One of them died, and then the second one died, and finally the third one, emaciated, was in the Tokyo Zoo when the Japanese surrendered. The American troops got there, found the elephant, and took over the care of the animals in the zoo, and so attempted to feed the third elephant, and he simply refused to eat. He died a few days later. He simply couldn't eat. He was overcome with grief. The story is long enough that it takes maybe 20 minutes to go over with individuals who don't speak great English. It is a sad, sad story. My English teacher, Hideki-sensei, told me, while you're reading this, you might have to pause on occasion, because some of the students will get very sad, some of them will cry. To which my response was, some of them will cry. I think I'm going to have to pause for entirely different reasons. And I did. It was a very sad story. I had to pause and put myself together. Interesting enough, this also had a very, marked effect on the students there. Many of them were impressed I cried because I'm American. Many of them were impressed I cried because I'm a guy. And we actually had a discussion about how, no, it's fine to cry in America, in acceptable circumstances. If you're just crying randomly in the street, people are probably going to ask you what's wrong, and then you're going to have to either tell them to go fuck off, or, yeah, don't say, oh, I'm fine, that's just going to make it worse. But the point here is that you make the really good moments in junior high and high school. Can you go there and just punch in, do your thing, punch out, and be fine? Absolutely. Please don't. I mean, if you hate the job, stick with it, get done, go home, or go teach somewhere else. Not necessarily somewhere else in Japan, but like a private school or something. Again, you are a cultural ambassador. Remember that. That's really all I got. I mean, I can probably think of stories, but again, it's probably running very long. So, thanks for listening.